All right, so I think we have everybody. We have Mark, Kyle, Jess, Tom, Kevin, and Lori. So welcome everybody to our Scranton City Council caucus. Hope everybody's doing well. All right, so we have quite a few items on the agenda tonight. So I guess we'll end with the budget because I know that's probably going to be the topic that everybody wants to discuss. The one thing that I do want to just touch on really quick is 5D. That's the legislation where we're rolling the refuse bill into the real estate tax bill. And the one question that I had, I just want to be sure of before final passage. And Kyle, maybe you can help out with this one because I know we talked about it last year. I just want to be sure that when someone gets their tax bill on a vacant lot, that they won't get charged $300. Is that, I think they said that they fixed that and that wasn't going to happen. Is that correct? Does anybody know?
I believe they said that it was just going to residential structures.
Okay.
I think we definitely need to double check on that one.
Okay. And then there are areas in the legislation where, you know, if somebody did get charged $300 and they don't have, you know, they don't dispose of garbage or whatever, there's an exemption process in there. So, and there's some other things that were changed. So I know everybody's just seeing this, so we'll take a week to review it, but just to keep that on everybody's radar. Then there's a number of pieces of legislation that deal with the LSA grant. So the city acts as in most cases, as a pass-through there. And then 5N is the grant application for the PennDOT multimodal transportation grant to replace the Mary Street Bridge, Hollow Avenue Bridge, and the South Webster Avenue Bridge. So any questions on anything besides the budget or anything anybody wants to talk about, even in third order? We good?
Okay. When it comes, Bill, when it comes to all of the, when we're looking at those, the reimbursements through the county, all of those bills that we're getting there in third order, they're funds that have already been identified, correct? They're not any new expenses, are they?
That's a good question. I think these are new and they're being added on. Now, I think we might want to have a conversation with Brenda Sacco from the county because she's in charge of all the grant funding over there.
Yeah, I mean, some of these documents seem the same. I know we got a list in the beginning that I don't remember what the total number was, but it was, what was it, 800,000, something like that. And I thought they said this is the total that we're looking for, and I kind of thought we were getting these little by little as we go, but these may be new. They may not be part of that original 800.
I don't know off the top of my head. These are new though, like they're
okay.
Additional expenses that have been incurred since we passed that resolution back in July of 2020.
Okay, and then I mean, recycling's been added into those funds too.
Yeah, I think we have to double check on that. I'm not positive if that is being reimbursed by the county.
Okay, because we recently did get correspondence saying that it wasn't the whole 800,000 though. It was what, 500,000?
Yeah, the correspondence and it was an article in the newspaper was from Brenda Sacco from the county, and I think the county commissioners, that the way that they were distributing the CARES money, that the city at this point was eligible for $500,000 worth of reimbursement. And then I don't think, they didn't say that we were capped at that, but they said that they would continue to monitor anything else that came in. And if there was additional funding available or other townships or boroughs throughout the county that didn't use their piece of the funding, that, you know, that might be able to go back to the city. It's the way that I understood it.
Yeah. Now, does that go? I mean, when we're having these expenditures, they're expenditures that are outside of the current budget, correct?
What do you mean?
So I mean, if we had $800,000 worth of things that could possibly, you know, be reimbursed through the CARES Act funding. But we only got the reimbursements for a portion of that. Where is that other money coming from? Does that come from the city?
Yeah, it'd have to come from the city because it's already been spent. So
Yeah, and I mean, like this one here, the second one in third order from November 12th is another $320,000. So I mean, with that 803, I mean, we're over $1 million here.
yeah, it's definitely a concern. There's been a large amount that's been spent. So we have to follow up on that. Anybody else on anything other than the budget?
The other thing with the Kohansky piece, they're still waiting for some outstanding items. Do we know if they got those or if there's any timeline on when the administration is going to get that stuff over to them so they could finish the audit?
The only thing I'm aware of is the update that they provided. And there was an Excel sheet that I think gave kind of a detailed description of what they need and what they're waiting for. I said last week or the week before. Last year we had to wait for the audit. I thought things were going to be different this year. I do know that they ran into some issues with the pandemic and in the beginning of the pandemic, getting some information. But I think that's a question that we should ask on Thursday when the business administrator and the mayor come to ask them. We know from the auditor's perspective why it's not done. They've given us pretty detailed updates, but I think what's still outstanding is why it's taking this long, because it's not we shouldn't get the audit in December from 2019, because you would want to see the audit of 2019 before you're reviewing the budget for 2021.
Yeah. The other thing other than the budget was I was going to ask Kevin, and maybe I'll ask on the question in the I think it's in the TAN that we're doing. Did you ever take a chance to take a look at the fee schedule that was associated with that?
No, I have not.
Yeah, just to give you a heads up, if you could take a look at the fee schedule.
Sure.
I mean, I'll ask on the question if it's comparable with other transactions of this nature and size.
Sure, I'll take a look at it. I'll look at it now and look at it before the meeting.
The total fees, according to the business administrator, are slightly lower than last year due to a lower bank fee. So I think, and I do have the documentation someplace, and I know Lori would have it in the files in the office. I'm pretty sure it's almost identical to last year, except I think in one line item here it's a little bit lower in the bank fee line item.
Yeah, Lori sent some of the older transactions over to me, which thank you, Lori, and I had a chance to look, but yeah, just making sure it's on par with other transactions of that nature.
I can look, Tom. I'll look at other TANs that I know have been submitted in recent years to Clark Summit, where I'm the solicitor, and see how they compare.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Bill, on the Center Street ordinance, if council passes it as amended with the new drawing, the agreement does have to be tweaked, and I'll get that over to the solicitor of Lackawanna County for them to change so that we could pass the resolution maybe at the next meeting.
Okay. Yep. That's great. Thank you very much. Does anybody have anything else outside of the budget? Anything else on the agenda?
I do have one thing. So Kevin, you remember I reached out to you regarding the hiring policy with regards to felonies.
Right.
If there is something in the policy and what if one surfaces, what's supposed to happen? I know you reached out to HR twice and they haven't gotten back to you, obviously, right?
I thought that didn't I forward you something from Bob Offberg on that issue?
I don't recall receiving it.
Let me just take a look. I thought I did, but go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I just want to know where we're at with that. Because
Okay.
It's a couple months now.
Okay.
Simple request. I'm just wondering where it is.
Okay, you got it. Let me see here.
If you can't find it, I'll bring it up in
No, I got it right here.
Okay.
Okay, before we get, does anybody have anything else? Sorry, Jess.
I'm just wondering if we heard back from American Water, if they would be able to come into one of our caucuses for an update.
No, I don't think we have, but we'll reach out to them again and see if we can get them in before the end of the year.
Okay, yeah, because I think, wasn't that deadline that they gave us, was that what, like mid-December? So
I think it was mid-December, yeah.
we'd like to hear from them sooner than later before they try to extend the project again.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. All right, so I just have a couple things. I want to make two motions tonight. The first one, we're gonna put the minutes of the Recreation Authority Board meeting and the agenda for next week for third order. I just took a quick look at it before the meeting, and one of the issues that was brought up at the Recreation Authority Board meeting that was held Thursday, November 5th, is about the pool at Neon Park. Without reading verbatim the minutes, the Recreation Authority Board was under the impression, I was under the impression as well, that there was money allocated in the 2020 budget to repair the pool. And they had conversations, I think, in the summer with the mayor and business administrator. They had a meeting set up, but it got canceled recently to discuss the pool funding allocation. And they're expressing real concerns that the pool may not be able to be open for next year because they can't get a real answer on where the funding or come up with an idea of how to fund it. So they're looking at filling in the big pool, Neon Park. That's a dangerous condition there with the diving board. And then the other pool, because I was up there in the summer, there's issues with the concrete, and there's issue with the liner. So what I'd like to do is make a motion to send a letter to the mayor and business administrator asking about the funding. Why hasn't it been released to the recreation board to allow for the repair and replacement of the liner of the pool? Will the pool be, I'd like a full report on the pool. Is it going to be ready for the summer of 2021? Will the larger pool be filled in, and if so, when? And again, a report on the condition of the pool and what the administration is going to do to fix that and make sure it's open for the summer. Because after I read the minutes, I'm a little concerned that we may be way behind there.
Yeah, Bill, I feel like if my memory serves me correct, I thought the money was allocated for the liner.
I believe it was, yeah. There was one of the capital expenditure line items in the budget. It was in there, and I've had conversations with the Recreation Authority Board since the summer about it, and I don't think anyone's seeing the movement maybe on the administration's part to make sure that this is ready. So if everybody would be in favor of that. I think we lost Kyle for some reason. I don't know where Kyle went. But just a letter to be sent to get an update on what's happening.
Didn't Mayor Evans put money in for that, for this to occur in the budget?
Yes.
So it just was never released or allocated towards it?
I don't believe so. No.
Well, that's strange.
So I think we need an update on that. And then the other motion I'd like to make is to invite the Pennsylvania Economy League to our Tuesday, November 24th caucus to discuss the 2021 budget. Lori, do you know if they're able to make it Tuesday? I know there was a Pell meeting today. I don't know if that was discussed.
Just briefly, and I noted the date and time. There was a slight conflict, I think, but they were going to look into it. I said that was the preferred date. However, if they couldn't change their commitment, if we could do it on December 1. So I will formally send something tomorrow to Pell and we'll see. But they do have a heads up that you were looking for that date.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So those are the two things on the regular meeting. And on to the budget. So just a few things before I think we'll each go through and kind of give maybe our first comments or our first impressions of the budget. Just so everybody's aware, council received the budget Monday afternoon. So I don't think anyone's had a full chance. I can't speak for everyone, but it's a rather large document. So we haven't had a full chance to go through every single line item in great detail. So I think we'll do that over the next few days. And then Thursday, we do have the work session with the mayor and the business administrator so that they can answer any questions and we can have a discussion on the budget. What I'd like to do Thursday, just so we can stay, maybe on topic, is, we'll start with revenue, and then we'll go, if there's any questions on the revenue line items, and then what we'll do is literally go by department. Law department, does anybody have any specific questions? I mean, if everybody's okay with that, I think that'd be good to get through the whole thing. Okay, that to me, that makes sense, rather than, just trying to go all over the place. So, I'm going to save most of my comments for fifth order when we bring the budget up. But just some of my major concerns, and I maybe some of you share these. The using or relying on the $4.4 million, the revenue gap that they're suggesting will be, we're looking at next year. Using the OPEB trust fund, using the excess reserve from the workers' comp fund to fill that hole, to me is concerning. That trust fund allocation this whole thing was negotiated a few years ago with the Labor and Industry Board. And it was our auditor's recommendation at that time that this OPEB trust fund be created, and those excess funds be put into the OPEB trust fund to pay down future long-term liability. So my concern would be that, there's a chance we burn through those dollars next year, we never get them back. And then we don't have the opportunity to create this fund and to pay down those future liabilities. So that's the one thing that stuck out to me that I think needs further discussion. The second thing would be that, last Thursday, we received the, preliminary budget. Between Thursday and Friday, things changed quite drastically, in my opinion, even with some of the figures that were presented between Thursday and Monday. But there's multiple options in this budget. And I have an issue with that in terms of it's hard to approve a budget with options in it, especially the restructuring using the sewer sale proceeds or the sewer sale funds. We definitely I think we need way more information on that before I'm comfortable approving anything. We need PFM in here. I know the mayor and business administrator are coming in. I just think that we need an actual figure on how much money a restructuring or refinancing of debt would bring in. There's a lot of other things that I have written down here. Those are the two things that stick out. So I think we need more information, and I don't think we can approve a budget with 4 different options in it. We need to know what the mayor and business administrator, what they think is the best option and what they're actually planning on doing, rather than having it being open-ended and going into 2021, not really having a good idea on what's going to be done. There's one other thing that stuck out to me, which is some of the new positions. Councilman Schuster and McAndrew, I think last week, mentioned the fact that we definitely need job descriptions. The one thing that I do not understand is the Parks and Recreation Department piece. We're adding a manager on top of a director, and then taking the groundskeepers, from what I can see, and moving them under the DPW supervision. So I'm not sure what the manager and supervisor of this department who they will actually manage if the employees are under the DPW. The other thing that is, concerning, I think we need to talk more about, is changing the title of the department. In the collective bargaining agreement, it's titled as the Parks and Recreation Department. Maybe this isn't that big of a deal, but we're moving these employees. I'd like to know if that, if they've had discussions with the department people, that could be an issue. And I just, to me, the problem is not adding, in that department anyways, it's not adding more management. The problem historically has been there's just not enough employees in that department to cover 32 parks. So one of the suggestions that I've made previously is to have, like a temp program, which I know they do have, hire high school and college kids during the summer to cut grass and add more manpower for less costs. So I have a bunch of other things here, but I don't want to dominate the whole caucus. So I'll go to my first person on the left. Mark, do you have any initial?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not happy with plugging the hole with the comp trust money. On Monday, I was told they would only plug the hole with $1 million and they can do whatever they want with that money. And then a day later, I was told, oh no, we need $5 million to plug that hole. So even before I even think about anything further, first of all, is this legal? I mean, that money is designated for the trust. So is that a legal move? I know it's already been backed off, so it's probably not going to happen, but they're a concern I have. I'm like you, a budget with options is a moving target for us to even look at or vote on. So, I have a problem with that, as you do, Bill. And PFM, I want their input. The city is distressed. It's in recovery for a reason. They have recovery people here for a reason. So I'd like their input as to how they feel about the budget, because I value their input. So
You mean Pell?
I'm sorry, Pell. That's right.
Okay.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Pell, thank you for correcting me. But yeah, they're here for a reason. Let's hear what they have to say, because I remember discussion last year about how much taxes are charged, because we don't charge this amount, it'll be double digits this year. And all of a sudden, there's no need for double digits. So I'd like a better understanding of that. The new positions I'm not happy with. There's need to have and nice to have. COVID's put a lot of the problems we have right now with finances. So because of COVID, I think we should just hold off. I mean, there's need to have, nice to have. And, new employees getting raises within 6 months. Administration doesn't want to call them raises, but if you make more money, if you get hired today and make more money 6 months from now, $7,000, or less than a year, another position making tens of thousands of dollars, it doesn't make sense to me at this time. Like I said earlier on, the other day, okay, maybe budget it a couple of years incrementally, like most places, based on merit or whatever, but just to give 2 new hires, both less than a year, one less than 6 months, money, raises. And they are raises. I don't care what, if say, oh, it's a position. I don't think now's the time to do it. We need to do, more with less, like everyone else is doing. So as of right now, they're my biggest concerns with the budget.
Mark, with regard to the legality of using the workers' compensation funds, I'm looking into that issue. My recollection is that the administration previously got authorization from the Department of Labor and Industry to do that, but I will get confirmation prior to Thursday's meeting for you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes, I agree with the concerns that both you and Councilman McAndrew have brought forward so far. Especially the revenue hole and using the trust fund for that. Especially with all of the increases in salaries and the new positions and adding all those, we feel like are extras into the budget, and then having that much of a hole. I'm concerned about filling it in that way. And I definitely would want more information. I'd like to hear more about that. I didn't quite get a chance yet to look through some of the changes that were made compared to what we had from last week. Like Councilman Gaughan said, we just got it yesterday, and I worked until 9 o'clock last night and worked all day today. So it has been tough to review the updated version that they've provided us with, but Sorry. And as for the salary increases too, I mean, I understand where they're coming from, and I know COVID is unpredictable, and perhaps our revenue won't be as bad, and I think they are being conservative for good reason with the revenue expectations for 2021, given the year that we've just had. And so, I mean, it would be great if it ends up being more, but I'd like to be a bit more cautious with the budget than where we're at. So, I'll certainly be looking at like each individual line item to be able to provide more comments and questions on them, especially for our work session on Thursday. I think that's everything that I had. Thank you.
Thanks. And Councilman Schuster, you're the next one of my Hollywood squares here, so that's why I'm going to you.
Yeah, the word that sticks out in what Jess just said was cautious. We're hoping those revenues are going to be up a little from what they're at right now. They might be a little bit conservative in this budget, but being cautious with some of our expenditures for next year. So, I mean, coming off of that list that you guys just laid out, I think I have all the same concerns as you have. When we're looking at that trust fund, I think it's a good idea. Bill, thanks for getting Pell involved. We need to get their take on what the parameters of that is. And those figures change, you know what I mean? Going from 1 or 1.5 to a $5 million borrow from this fund is a huge difference there. And I kind of, when I'm looking at the TAN, we borrowed less than the TAN this year. And hey, I agree with that. We'll save some money on some interest rates, but was that some money that we could have used there to keep some more of that money in the trust if that's a necessity that we have to do? Also, the new positions. I mean, we definitely need job descriptions. Anywhere else in any other field, you're going to have a justification for a position, and we need to see that justification. What does it do for us? What does it do for the city? Does it make government more efficient? And I think concerns, Mr. President, that you raised are good concerns. We are in the middle of a pandemic. It's a huge concern. Money lost, and I think looking for those new positions and looking for those increases in salaries it's not a good time to look for those. We furloughed employees in the beginning of the pandemic, and now we're looking for increases in more positions. And then the CBAs come into play. Right now, we're working with the clerical union, or the administration's working with the clerical union, and I'm sure with that they're saying they're trying to be conservative on how much the increases are there, where we're talking about these raises in these other areas. So I think that's something to take into consideration. And I mean, maybe that's should be a concern of the administration when they're going to be dealing with the CBAs of the other bargaining units going into next year.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Tom.
I hope that summed it up.
Yeah.
Very well. Kyle?
I have, the same concerns as everyone else. My main one being using that 4.4 million from workers from that's supposed to go into OPEB trust. We should also, I mean, especially for Thursday, I'm going to put together a list, hopefully to send to the administration, of just some preliminary questions tomorrow, just like how they went from the 5 million to the 4.4 million, between Thursday and Monday. I'd like to see that comparison. We never really got a list either of the employees that were furloughed that haven't been called back at all, correct?
No, as far as I know, we haven't.
Because I mean, one of the things that just popped off initially too was the increase in unemployment insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That line item was pretty hefty. And I don't know how you could use austerity in one sentence and then create all these X amount of positions in the next sentence. So I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of work to be done on it. And like Councilman Gaughan said, with the options, that gets into a slippery slope, I think. So I think we have to discuss that further too.
Okay, thank you. I think that we should request the job descriptions by the end of the week, if for no other reason that we're under a tight timeline now, and we're not going to really have that much time if we want to make amendments to this budget. And really, I know there's a lot of new positions, and as I think told all of you individually, and as Councilman Schuster said, I will try to understand it and see if there's value added once I see what the job description actually is. So I think we need that by the end of the week. So is everybody okay with that? I mean, I think that, I know they said that they were working on them, but I would think that if you're going to put in a new position, you would already almost want to know or already have, some kind of thought process on what the description would be.
Yeah, I would say we don't even consider a new position unless we have, a justification and a description.
Right.
I agree. It's really important. That's going to help us to make these decisions.
Okay.
So do you want me to send a note now to the mayor and Carl asking for that?
Yeah, that'll be good. Since we have a little bit of time, there's just some other things that stuck out to me. One thing that we definitely are going to have to consider is ECTV. I think I brought this up before a couple months ago, and I did have a conversation with the mayor. It's one of the things that I will bring up on Thursday, but ECTV is out of funding, I think at the end of this year. So I met with the representatives from ECTV, Mark Migliori, Mary Frances Thorne, and Chris Balton a couple months ago. And they laid out what they would need to operate. And as we know, we're live on ECTV now, how important this public access channel is, how much ECTV does. They're not going to be able to operate without funding from the city. They get $30,000 from the county. What they gave to me was about $118,000 broken out in a budget, and I will get that to everyone before we would make a final decision. I thought that they were going to be funded in this budget, but the line item that the administration has them under is only funded at $20,000, and that's not going to cut it. I don't think they'll be able to keep operating with that amount of money. So the one thing, we can obviously talk about the numbers over the next few weeks, but the one thing that they have $120,000 budgeted for interns next year, which, I mean, we'll talk to the mayor on Thursday about it. I just don't see that as a necessity. I would rather take that money and put it towards ECTV to keep the public access channel running. I think the internship program is great, but I was an intern once and I didn't get paid, and I think there's value in that as well. I just don't think, I mean, it's not a great salary when they do have it broken down in the budget, but we should try to find another source of funding there. A couple other things. One thing I definitely think that we need to do and that I don't understand, and I think I brought this up Thursday, the mayor, and I know why the mayor did it, but I just don't agree with it being in the actual budget in a line item. There are positions that have a line item, but they're not funded. I don't mind if it's in the narrative, and I get the mayor's rationale that she wants to show what the city would need to operate and what she would like to have. That's fine in the narrative, but in the actual budget, to put a line item there and not fund it, I just think we need to take those out. It's just too confusing. It says not funded, but it should only be in there if it's going to be funded. So that's one major thing that stuck out. I think we need more discussion on the mid-year adjustment or update.
Yeah.
No, Kevin and I have talked about that, and I just we need to make sure that is in line with the home rule charter and that's allowable. If they want to come to council or they want to say, here's where we are in the middle of the year, that's fine. But to alter the budget, I think we really need to talk about that because number one, I don't know if it's allowable. Number two, okay, so.
Well, I don't think there's not a whole lot of flexibility there. We're required to pass an annual budget every year. And the administration has the ability to make some interdepartmental transfers of funds, but I don't see anything that permits to do a wholesale amendment of a budget mid-year. I
Right.
mean, I understand their justification for wanting that because there's a lot of uncertainty, but I don't think there's flexibility. And I'll be happy to talk that over with the administration. But I thought we raised that during our last caucus with them, so we could revisit it again on Thursday.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. The other thing too, the public health coordinator, again, I'd like to see a job description. It's in the budget as a line item. It says it's not going to be funded. I just think we should drill down Thursday on, are there any partnerships in place? Definitely. Who are they? How much money is going to be, funded from this position? How long? I mean, it's too open-ended. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I think we need more discussion on that. Kevin, maybe you can answer this. There's a line item in the budget, and it's the first time I've seen it, the Keystone landfill grant. Now, I know that per the landfill agreement, we would get $100,000 worth of equipment. The administration has that in there as $100,000 as a line item for revenue.
It's not it's not cash. It's $100,000 worth of
in
equipment.
Right. So we need to Thursday. I mean, I have this written down, so I'm not going to forget to bring it up, but I don't think that should be in there.
Especially when we don't know how much we've ever received or anticipate to receive.
The other thing too, that, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but there's no, in looking at the collective bargaining, or looking at all the collective bargaining employees, the union employees, fire department, and I do appreciate what they did by showing what the increase is. I have not seen that before in any budget that I've looked at. So I like how that's broken down, but there's no increases for any of the clerical employees. Now I know they're in negotiations. However, I'm assuming it's a pay freeze for a year, but is this a definite? And I think we need, I mean, I don't know how much they can talk about it, but that's a concern of mine. Like, you're basically saying that for a year, these employees are going to get a pay freeze. We don't have a collective bargaining agreement in front of us. I have not seen anything that's been agreed to. So I think we need clarification on that. And the other big thing too that I'll end with is overtime. I'd like to know what we're over. We got the report from Controller Murray. We are over budget in the fire and police. And it's may seem like a small thing, but to me it doesn't make any sense. We have spent overtime in the law department this year. There was no overtime budgeted. So for the life of me, I cannot understand how you can spend overtime in a department when I approved the budget in 2020. There was no overtime in the law department. So where they got that from, I don't know, but we need to find that out. And then in this year, they've included a line item for overtime in the law department. So I think that needs to be explained. I mean, these are all salaried employees except for maybe one or two. I can't remember off the top of my head. I just don't know why that's in there.
I think they're all salaried employees, aren't they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Bill, maybe we should request a list of the salaried employees, who's exempt, who's non-exempt when it comes to overtime. I know it's a conversation that I've had with several different people, and I don't know if any of us actually know which ones are or are not exempt.
Okay, that's a good question. I think I have some other things here, but the other big thing too that I think we need to talk about on Thursday is the business privilege and mercantile tax to the payroll preparation tax. So it's stated in the budget and the narrative that it's being basically pushed off until 2022. That's a big concern of mine. I mean, the people voted for this, overwhelmingly voted for this change. We've been talking about it now for a very long time. Councilman Donahue and I have been talking about it forever. Councilman Schuster and Councilman McAndrew have been talking about it on the school board. And I think I brought this up Thursday, if we wait until 2022, we're going to lose out because right, Kyle? You'd want to use this year as the base because next year the revenue might fall off, correct?
Yeah, so basically if we were to do it for into 2021, you use 2019 actual numbers to determine your base. So if we push it off another year, we're gonna be looking at using 2020 numbers as our base number going into 2022 for enactment. So we're more than likely would be starting with a smaller base. Unless, the state were to give us authorization to do it after we leave Act 47, that's still a possibility, but not a great one.
Okay, so we need to talk about that.
Well,
And
Jesus, the reason why Act 47 was extended is to get this done for the most part.
Right.
And now we're going to push it off? I don't understand. Doesn't make no sense to me.
And if I'm hearing what Kyle's saying is correct, I mean, 2020 is an anomaly year. So do we have to base it off the 2020 numbers? Yeah, I mean, it's
The way it was explained to me is based off current law is you have to base it off a previous year's actual number. So it can't be so we wouldn't be able to use 2020 numbers because we don't have those to going into 2021. So it'd be the year before because you have those actual numbers.
And yeah, that's what I'm saying. So 2020 is an anomaly compared to probably, I'm sure, the last 5 years because we're off $3 to $4 million, if not more.
yeah, definitely. Okay, I have some other things here, but I'll save it for
And just going back to for some just historical reference on that, the reason it appeared in the first recovery plan that I believe was approved in 15. But the reason it took so long to start talking about it is they wanted to get the delinquent numbers up to a comfortable point because the delinquents could add into that total number too, in terms of establishing that rate. So that's why it took those 2 years from basically 3 years then from 15 to 18 before it was even discussed.
Yeah, so I'd like to know why it would take so much longer, why we would need to even wait till 2022. I agree that the whole purpose of the extension was so that we could get this done. So I want to make sure that happens definitely in 2021.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we have about 2 minutes, so take a little break here and then we will start the regular meeting at 6:30. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks.
I'd like to call this public meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for all those who have passed away in our community. And just as we have since the beginning of this pandemic, we'll take a moment of silence for all those people in our community, in Lackawanna County and in Scranton, in our country and around the globe who have passed away from COVID-19. This pandemic, as everyone knows, has turned our world completely upside down, but we must remain hopeful and strong. The next few months are going to be extremely difficult, and we will continue to pray for the doctors, nurses, researchers, and all medical professionals who seek to heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. May they have protection and peace. Whether we are here at home in Scranton or abroad, surrounded by many people suffering from this illness, or only a few, let us stick together, endure together, mourn together, and in place of our anxiety, let us have hope and peace. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Present.
Mr. McAndrew,
Present?
Dr. Rothchild,
Here,
Mr. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Gaughan.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Carrera. Councilman Donahue?
I'd like to make a motion to take from the table file of the council number 31 of 2020.
Second.
On the question? This piece of legislation is being taken from the table and is being placed in seventh order for a final vote. The legislation approves the designation of the 300 block of Center Street as a one-way from Penn Avenue towards Wyoming Avenue. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Mrs. Reed, please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Thank you. Third order. 3A, correspondence received from OECD dated November 6, 2020 regarding NEPA Alliance disclosures as requested by council. 3B, correspondence received from OECD Executive Director dated November 6, 2020 regarding COVID-19 reimbursements through Lackawanna County CARES Act funding. 3C, check received from Comcast in the amount of $259,772.26 for quarterly franchise fee. 3D, correspondence received from Firetree Ltd. dated November 3, 2020 regarding residential re-entry services at 409-411 Olive Street. 3E, correspondence received from Kohansky Company PC dated November 9, 2020 regarding City of Scranton audit update. 3F, Herbert, Roland, and Grubik Incorporated presentation to City Council dated November 10, 2020 regarding Chesapeake Bay pollutant reduction plan. 3G, City of Scranton 2020 healthcare update presented by Willis Towers Watson on November 10, 2020. 3H, correspondence received from OECD Executive Director dated November 12, 2020 regarding COVID-19 reimbursements through Lackawanna County CARES Act funding. 3I, City of Scranton General Obligation Tax and Revenue Anticipation Note, summary of terms and conditions, received November 10, 2020. 3J, memorandum received from Council Solicitor dated November 10, 2020 regarding suggested amendment to file of the Council number 31, 2020, 300 block of Center Street, one-way designation.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Are there any comments on any of the third order items?
Yeah, I had three comments on third order items. I asked them in caucus, but one was with 3B. It was with 3B and also 3H with the CARES Act funding. I guess the comment on it would be these seem to be new fees. We've already submitted for about $800,000 to the county. We've only been partially funded for about $500,000, and it seems that we have another $300,000 here related to that. I think we need to be careful with how we're spending this money and keep a close eye on this. It really concerns me how much is being spent there. And then recycling, I see was added to those COVID funds as well, which is something I think we need to get a little deeper into there. And then I did have a question with regards to the working draft on the finance statements that Kohansky and Company, they stated they were going to provide in their correspondence, but it appears that we're still waiting on some, they're still waiting on some outstanding items from administration. So I don't think any of us received word that they received those items.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the third order items? Okay, I just have one in reference to item 3I, the term sheet for the tax anticipation note. There was a typographical error regarding the paying agent. It was incorrectly stated on the term sheet and has now been corrected to reflect that Fidelity Bank is the paying agent. So just to take note of that. If there are no other comments, they are received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
Yeah, I have a couple. Just a reminder that garbage pickup is on schedule this week. And also, I believe City Hall and everything is closed on Thursday next week for Thanksgiving. So garbage will be picked up Friday and Saturday, pushed back next week. Also, there's the fall leaf and recycling program. All leaves must be placed in biodegradable brown paper bags. The cities ran out of bags, but they could still be purchased at your local hardware and home improvement stores. All collections will be from the curbside of streets and avenues. No collections in courts or alleys, no loose piles, no plastic bags, no household trash and leaf bags. The remaining weeks for that schedule are next week, the week of November 24th, and also the week of December 7th.
Thank you. Anyone else have any announcements?
I have one. So every year, Catholic Social Services and Friends of the Poor have a Christmas gift for kids program. This year, they have to do it a little differently. What people need to do is either go to the Friends of the Poor Facebook page, and online they can register.
Oh, Mark, I think you're freezing up. We can't hear you.
Address, as well as insurance card, report card, birth certificate, or some proof of ID for each child. Those who do not have access to a computer or smartphone should call Mary Hohing at 570-207-2283, extension 2110. And this registration is started already. So it's Monday the 16th until Friday the 20th. That is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, we got most of what you said, but you were freezing up a little bit there, just so you know.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Yes, I have one. I want to mention that there are free holiday meals being provided by the NAACP Lackawanna Organizing Committee. So if anyone is in need and for this holiday, they can contact the NAACP. They have a Facebook page, NAACP Lackawanna County. Their phone number is 570-234-9794. Meals are being prepared by 3 local restaurants and can be delivered or picked up between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day. And in order to receive the meals, people need to RSVP by November 24th. And I think the 3 restaurants that are providing meals, which are all very good restaurants, include Paradise Soul Food, Westside Flavas, and Poppy's Kitchen. So thanks to those restaurants for donating their food and services to those in need.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? I have 2. Just to announce that this Thursday, we will have a budget work session. Council will meet with the mayor and the business administrator, Carl Dealey, at 6 p.m. It'll be live on YouTube as well as live on ECTV. So the plan is to go through the budget department by department. We'll start off with revenues, and then we'll go into the expenditures by department. So I think Councilman Donahue mentioned about sending any questions in advance. If you can do that, if you have any major topics or questions, I think that would be helpful, just so that the administration would come prepared to have those answers if there's specific questions. The second, I just want to take a moment. Second thing I like to say is in honor of Bob McGough. I just want to say a few words about Bob McGough. So Bob McGough, as all of you know, was the longtime president of council, longtime council member. It will be, and I had the honor of serving with him for a number of years on council when I first was elected back in 2014. And it will be 5 years this Thursday, November 19th, that our friend and colleague Bob McGough lost his battle with cancer. And I want to take a second, as Wayne Evans always did it at our council meetings, by reading Bob McGough's words that he spoke at a council meeting about his struggle with cancer. And Bob McGough said, "Just one thing I would like to mention. I would just like to say that I know all of us have been affected in some way by this insidious disease. And I would just encourage anyone that knows someone who is fighting this or dealing with treatments involved with cancer to be a friend. One of the things that happens to cancer patients and those under treatment, depression is a very significant aspect of it. And believe it or not, simply sitting down and talking with people, watching a television show, bringing dinner and having something to eat with them goes a long way to helping people deal with that. And I would just encourage that if you know someone, please be a friend and be part of the helping process. So those were Bob McGough's words. Bob McGough was someone who understood the importance of even the smallest gesture, someone that we all will have great respect for, and I will always personally admire. And his words are worth mentioning once again in his honor and his memory. Bob McGough was one of the strongest people that I have ever sat next to or seen. He went through his battle with cancer, and I never heard him once complain about it. Still showed up to council meetings, still showed up to meetings with the administration, and still led the council without missing a beat. And he really was a true gentleman. And that's the one thing that I will always remember about Bob McGough. He, even when things would get heated and people would be on opposite sides of the fence on an issue, he always kept his cool and always brought everybody back to the table and back to the middle, and kept everyone really grounded, and really kept the city together at a very perilous moment in terms of our finances. He was outstanding in that regard. And the one thing I will remember about him is, in 2015, when my wife had our first son, Jack, one of the first gifts I received was from Bob McGough, and he bought him a pair of his first sneakers. So that's the type of guy that he was. He was just very down to earth, very compassionate, and a very, very kind person. So our thoughts and our prayers are with Marita and the entire McGough family on the 5-year anniversary of Bob's passing, and someone that this council, he made such an impact that this council and future councils will never forget him. Mrs. Reed.
Thank you. Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. At this time, would someone please make a motion to accept public comment from the following individuals: Patricia Nestor, Faye Franis, Dave Dobson, and Marie Schumacher?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to accept public comment. Mrs. Reed, could you please read the comments into the record?
Thank you. The first submission is from Patricia Nestor as follows. Can someone please elaborate on the mayor's intentions to reduce guns and ammunition by over 50%? She posted it on Facebook under plans for 2021 budget with any further comments. If she goes after the second amendment, she might want to budget for some lawsuits. The second submission, submitted by Faye Franis, as follows. Council, I understand there will be no tax increase this year in the city. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Following in Mayor Doherty's footsteps, I see. No tax increase because the mayor is running for election. Get ready, folks, for the taxes to skyrocket in 2022. How does the mayor justify giving raises to city employees and creating jobs when people are losing their small businesses all over the city and people don't have food? Can any of you please tell me how this is right? Any of you, please express how each of you feel about this. Create jobs. My gosh, don't we already have enough assistants to assistants? The mayor has a chief of staff, then there's an assistant to the chief of staff, then an assistant to the city lawyer. This list is endless, and yet the mayor wants to create more jobs. Does Virginia McGregor get paid for all of her advice? Past Scranton mayors had a secretary and one lawyer. Scranton is not Philadelphia. If you approve these budget items to create jobs and give raises when we are still a distressed city with people losing their homes, then you need to resign. Are there still people furloughed? If so, who are they? This question has been asked and never answered yet. Why can't there be a list of who is laid off and who is already brought back to work? Why the secrecy? Why aren't we supposed to know that is such a secret, and why? Also, the garbage fee is set for $300 again, more than likely illegally, because what comes in is more than what goes out to run the DPW department. Then you use the rest to pay your other bills, which is against the city law. The garbage fee money coming in from residents is only to be used to pay for running the Department of Public Works, nothing else. But every year the city has used that extra money we send in to pay all of your other bills. That is why there is a lawsuit pending. We caught you and you are continuing to do it again illegally. And 75% of city residents are still paying for 25% that are still not paying for over a decade. But you don't care. What is the strategy I heard about? Or is that a secret as well? Then we shouldn't know about. My neighbors still don't pay for their garbage pickup since 2011 or longer. Are the people who pay soon this year going to get $30 off their bill to $270? Is that mentioned in the budget? We need to know now, so tell us now. So here we go again. I ask questions with undoubtedly no replies, but the people should know that you sit there and refuse to answer my questions because you definitely don't want us to know the answers. If by chance you answer one question, that surely is not sufficient. If I were there in person, I would stand there and say, well, you didn't answer my question, but I don't have that opportunity. You get away with what you are doing. Sad to say. How would you feel if you wanted answers and never got them? Not nice, is it? Well, start replying. We pay you to do so. The third submission is from Dave Dobson as follows. Last week, I sent an email on recycling and omitted plastic bottles from consideration. The revised schedule is as follows. First week, metal cans could be sorted with the magnetic device, cutting manual costs. Second week, paper. Third week, plastic. Note, throw unsuitable contaminated into trash. Fourth week, cardboard. 4 more weeks left over could be used for lawn as small bonus per year, leaves and twigs, etc. Once again, glass has no recyclable value and confounds sorting, usually breaks by compaction and causes a safety concerns. And when mingled, must be sorted at greater cost. State law may need consideration for this idea. A new/old concern is the city is going ahead with a plan to collect trash fee by address instead of occupancy. This may become a bonanza for real estate investors as the fee may be lowered and in fact raised for unoccupied lots, often sold by the city for added space. If we charge a flat fee per address, a 4-unit could be lowered to $300 per year from $1,200. A non-developable lot could increase to $300 per annum more. What a deal. My tax on this lot has increased to about $700 per year as it is, and 40 by 140 foot is not developable, could be increased to $1,050, tripling the original assessment of $333. A rental house near me went for $950 per month, mainly due to Section 8 subsidy and not known. However, the former tenants were a nightmare and fortunately they moved. The new tenants are nicer, fortunately. I would hope an appeal process would be granted for these situations. This idea was contrived with several realtors involved, and pardon me, I don't need their bills falling on my finances. Our home has a wood chipper and plant materials are mulch for garden use. Also, a friend takes wood for his fireplace use. For in the country, it seems to me that every time the torch is passed to a new generation, we reinvent government, even though past practice did not fail, but only tepid attempts were made at making the old system work. I never challenged the current situation on trash. Sincerely yours, the anthracite hillbilly, Dave Dobson. The fourth submission is from Marie Schumacher as follows. 3E does not include the attachment mentioned in the one-pager. Last week's caucus stated council would receive the next day. The agenda was made available 11/16, but third order did not include the budget. Why? Last week's HRG presentation was both bitter and sweet. Sweet because it finally arrived, but bitter because it kicks the can down the road yet again as they want to await new regulations, county action, etc. No mention of the areas that are regularly flooded and need attention now. Not discussed was the opportunity to, 1, address the regulations before they are adopted, and 2, to lobby our underworked representatives to ensure the new regulations are funded by the federal budget and not dumped on the property owner again. Also, one of my unanswered capital budget questions related to proper number of street sweepers is the city should select that has a sediment reduction. HRG reports that is a city selection, so is the sweeper inventory sufficient? I would like to know why the mayor was allowed to sidestep the question of how many people furloughed are back to work. The majority is not a sufficient answer in my book, and I'm sorry, chose not to pursue a finite answer. There have been some really nasty pave cuts. Could someone please brief us on pave cuts? I once thought an entire street would have to be paved if a utility made a certain number of pave cuts on that street. Now I hear those cuts have to be within a certain time frame. Is this true? And if so, what is that time frame? As I have mentioned over the years, the redevelopment authority operates on a different July through June, I believe, fiscal year than the city. So if you ever want an audit on time, you must ask them to go on a January through December year. Closing, may I report it has been a very long time since any questions not answered during the meeting have received answers. And that concludes the citizen participation portion.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. On the furloughs, I think we asked tonight for a list of the employees that are still furloughed, so that will take care of that question. As for Ms. Schumacher's comment about the budget not being in third order, the budget is on the agenda tonight. The budget was received Monday afternoon, and then the agenda was posted Monday afternoon. And if anyone from the public would like to look at the budget, just go to scrantonpa.gov under the council page, click on our agenda for today's meeting that was posted yesterday, and you can find it. It is in there under fifth order. It won't be in third order, it will be in fifth. As for some of the other questions, we'll pose these to the administration. I don't know some of the answers off the top of my head. Ms. Schumacher's last comment about questions not being answered during the meeting. Mrs. Reed, if you can, I know we've sent any questions that have been posed to the administration. If you can ask for an update on when we might receive answers. And I did, on some of the DPW items, I did send those answers to Ms. Schumacher on the street sweeper and other things that she posed as well related to the capital budget. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Councilman Schuster, do you have any motions or comments tonight?
No, nothing at this time. I might have a motion on the question with one of the grants later on, but nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Councilman McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
A couple. So, I shared some of my concerns about the budget in caucus. I'll reserve them and express them again at the budget hearing on Thursday. I also, in caucus, I reached out to Attorney Hayes 2 months ago, maybe 3. A concerned citizen came to me and had questions about the hiring process or a policy whereas, okay, is having a felony disclosed on an application? If so, if not, okay, what happens if one surfaces? So I requested from Solicitor Hayes to reach out to our HR director and labor attorney twice, and we haven't gotten anything back from them. Did you find anything yet, Solicitor Hayes? You're on mute, sir.
Mark, I forwarded to you the memo that they provided in response to that. So if I didn't send it to you earlier, that was my bad, but they did respond to me on October 20th. So, which outlines their, for the various departments, what the policy is and the applicable law.
Well, thanks for the update. I'll take a look at it, and thanks again. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman McAndrew. Dr. Rothchild, any motions or comments?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councilman Donahue, any motions or comments?
I'm just going to reserve my comments for some agenda items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have a few. The first thing I'd like to do, as I mentioned in the caucus tonight, I'd like to make a motion that council send a letter to the mayor and business administrator asking for a complete report on the pool at Naog Park, when the pool, if the pool will be ready for opening in summer of 2021, and why the funding has not been released to the recreation board to allow for the repair or replacement of the liner at Naog Pool.
Second.
There's been a motion made and a second on the question. On the question, just to reiterate, I was taking a look at the minutes from the Recreation Authority Board that'll be in third order next week. This meeting was held Thursday, November 5th. And at the end of the meeting minutes, one of the members asked the solicitor of the board if the city answered the board's request regarding filling in the big pool. The meeting, he replied that the meeting was canceled. No date has been set to reschedule. And then the members of the board expressed concerns with money that was allocated in this budget that was not used to repair the pool. Wants to know if the money's still there, if it was transferred elsewhere, and they're very concerned that the pool will not be repaired and the children will not have a pool in 2021. So based on that and being up there this summer and looking at all the work that has to be done, I am concerned. I really think we need a full report from the mayor and the administration on what's going on and if that pool is going to be ready. Anyone else on the question?
Yes, on the question. So I remember that Mayor Evans put money in the budget to take care of this, and it terrifies me knowing that the pool, the deeper pool with the diving board is not filled in yet. That to me is a huge liability, huge liability. That alone scares me. So of course I'd like an update on both of them questions.
Okay. Thank you. All right, there's been a motion, a second on the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved. And the motion passes. I'd also like to make a motion to invite the Pennsylvania Economy League representatives, who are the city's Act 47 recovery coordinator, to our Tuesday, November 24th caucus to discuss and take questions about the 2021 budget. Is there a second? There's been a motion and a second on the question. On the question, as has been stated, one of the things I've always insisted upon is that, and they've always agreed and have come and answered questions, and usually a letter accompanies the budget, because I believe Pell has to certify the budget. But I think it's important to have a recovery coordinator at a caucus with council to answer questions about the budget, about their thoughts on the budget, and what the financial situation of the city looks like moving forward. So I look forward to having those discussions. Anyone else on the question?
Yeah, on the question, I think, as you say, Mr. Gaughan, I think it's a good idea to get their thoughts on this budget, and also to, more specifically, when we're looking at the borrowing from that trust fund, get what they had stated on that fund and get the parameters of borrowing from that fund.
I agree. Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion? Oh, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I totally agree. Having their presence and input. The city's in recovery for a reason. There is a recovery team here for a reason. I value their input, and I'd like to hear it.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion passes. The other thing I have is last Thursday, the business administrator said that there was a memo that council was supposed to receive on the sale of receivables. It's a line item in this year's budget, revenue line item in this year's budget. They mentioned that they were going to release a memo. So Lori, could you please request a copy of that memo, or find out when they're going to release that? I have additional concerns there, but I'll mention them in fifth order when we talk about the budget. And that's all I have.
President Gaughan,
Mhm.
was there going to be a motion to send correspondence to the mayor and the administration on the job descriptions?
Oh,
I
yes,
already did that. And,
Oh, yeah,
and the
Kevin.
mayor, and I asked that they be responded to by the end of the week, by 3:30, that they submit them to Lori. And the mayor already responded that they're working on them right now.
okay, very good.
I don't know if you want to still do a motion or not, but
No, I think that's good. That works. Okay, Lori?
Thank you. 5B for introduction and ordinance amending file of the council number 95, 2015, an ordinance entitled amending file of the council number 79 of 2015, an ordinance amending file of the council number 145 of 2007 entitled an ordinance renaming the emergency and municipal services tax to local service tax, and by imposing a withholding of $52 for the calendar year 2015, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter by increasing the local services tax withholding from $52 to $156 for the calendar year 2015, and providing for an exemption from taxation for any person whose total earned income and net profits from all sources within the municipality is less than $15,600 for the calendar year 2015 under and pursuant to the Local Tax Enabling Act, Act 511 of 1965, PL 1257-53 PS, Section 6924-101 et seq, and the Municipalities Recovery Act, Act 47 of 1987, PL 246-53 PS, Section 11701.101 et seq, and their respective amendments, effective retroactive to January 1, 2020. This tax enables the city of Scranton to continue to levy the local services tax at the fiscal year 2019 rate for fiscal year 2020 for a total maximum local services rate of $156 for the fiscal year 2020, effective retroactive to January 1, 2020.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, one thing I would like to bring up at Thursday night's meeting is getting the petition in for the tripling of the LST for next year early enough. This year it wasn't filed until the end of February, and then with everything with the pandemic, it was pushed off. And normally we should be passing this at the beginning of the year, not in November. So the petition, going forward should be filed in November. So then at least a date is set for, hopefully by mid-January then for the court approval.
I agree. Thank you. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, an ordinance appropriating funds for the expenses of the city government for the period commencing on the first day of January 2021 to and including December 31, 2021, by the adoption of the general city operating budget for the year 2021.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Who wants to go first?
I guess on the question, do all new positions have salary amounts associated with them, and do all line items have dollar amounts associated with them too?
Yes, they have to. Except for the ones where it says not funded, which, as I mentioned in the caucus, I think we should take those out, but yep.
Okay.
Anyone else on the question? All right, I have a few things I'd like to say. So I'll start with the good before I go into it's always good to start with the good things first. So the first thing I'd like to say is I've been through several budgets now since I've been on council, and I have to give credit to Mayor Cognetti and her administration in this respect, that they are not afraid to defend their budget. I have sat through many budgets where we couldn't get the mayor to in fact, I don't believe we ever had the previous mayor before caucus, and we requested numerous times. So we've already had the mayor and the business administrator before us on Thursday. They're coming again this Thursday. And speaking with the mayor, they're more than willing to answer any and all questions and exhaust all of our concerns before final passage. So I think any plan, any budget needs to be scrutinized. That's our job as council people, is to look at this thing line item by line item, scrutinize it, put it through the ringer. And I just personally appreciate the mayor and the business administrator coming before us, answering questions and defending their plan, even if we have concerns about it or that we don't agree with it. As I said, I haven't always been a part of a process that has been like that. So this is new to me, and I think it's the best way to do it. So I do appreciate that. And I think it's much more transparent. As I mentioned earlier, I received the budget yesterday afternoon, as all of council did. So it's a rather large document. So I will need time to continue to look through it. But my first kind of initial review and my first blush reaction, I have a few concerns. The first would be that the numbers that we received Thursday, when the mayor and the business administrator came to our work session, compared to the numbers we received yesterday afternoon, varied, and in some cases significantly. So my first question that I'd like to know is what changed between Thursday and Monday? The projections changed in some instances drastically within a few days. For example, what we were given Thursday, the delinquent real estate tax was at revenue was at $600,000. Tuesday, the budget we have in front of us, the final document, it's at 2.3 million. So for those numbers to change so significantly, what happened between in those few days, and maybe there's a good explanation, and hopefully we'll find out Thursday. The landfill and refuse fees, Thursday it was $8,050,000. Tuesday it's $7,800,000, and then obviously the borrowing, the interfund transfers, when we had a $5 million deficit Thursday, and then we're down to a $4.4 million deficit on Tuesday. My second concern is the plan that was presented to us Thursday and the plan that is presented to us again today. The budget is using roughly $4.4 million from excess workers' compensation reserves. These were originally supposed to be used for an OPEB trust fund. The OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. This was supposed to assist with future allocations for retiree benefits. The OPEB trust fund allocation was based on a major recommendation from the city's auditor a few years ago. The fund would be established for other post-employment benefits, which could include things like Medicare reimbursements. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends as a best practice that governments pre-fund their obligations for post-employment benefits other than pensions once it's determined that the employer has incurred a substantial long-term liability, which of course is the case with the city of Scranton. I think our long-term liability is over $200 million at this point. If funded properly, so if funded with what the original plan was, the city may make long-term investments to cover these obligations through a separate trust fund, which should theoretically over time result in a lower total cost for providing post-employment benefits. And other examples of post-employment benefits would be healthcare or insurance premiums. During the weekend, it was reported in the Scranton Times that the plan had changed after a conversation that the administration had with PFM, who's the city's financial advisor. And at this point, the mayor and the business administrator were considering utilizing cash collateral from sewer seal proceeds, or according to the narrative, other financing, which would require restructuring. According to the budget document that we received, this option would be explored at any point during the year. And if the funds were either not necessary or less than the $4.4 million revenue gap, the refinancing could be tailored to the needed amount. There's a few issues that I have with this on its face. The budget that's presented to us today includes multiple options which may address the budget shortfall next year. I have a hard time approving a budget with so many options in it. I'm more interested in how exactly we're going to do this. Either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. And we need, as a council, I think, much more detail about how the administration plans on closing the budget shortfall next year. I am particularly concerned about using workers' compensation proceeds that were designated to reduce costs and liabilities going forward. Taking these dollars to balance the budget next year at the expense of savings later on is risky, in my opinion. One of the concerns I have is what kind of message that would send to the financial community. Because I remember a few years ago that the city creating this OPEB trust fund, the negotiations that went on with labor and industry was looked upon favorably by the financial community. And historically, this is what the city of Scranton does. We take something that's intended for another fund or to invest, and we use it as a one-time revenue source. So I think before we do that, we need to exhaust every other avenue and option, and we should really research this and make sure it's the right thing to do, because that money was not intended for this use. Before I would even consider approving this budget, I would need much more information on the cash collateral restructuring. There are way too many what ifs in this narrative, and it seems like, to me anyways, that this was put together at the last minute, which is concerning. We don't have a figure on how much money a restructuring or refinancing of debt would bring in. And if this is an actual serious option that they are going to consider, then we need at least a ballpark of where those figures might be before we pass a final budget. The other concern that I have is, and I think my other council colleagues brought this up, earlier in the week, the budget shortfall was $1.5 million. And then that changed drastically to $5 million. Now we're down to $4.6 million. So to me, the fact that the city administration did not know that they'd be nearly $4.5 million in the hole next year as little as a week ago is concerning to me. And the fact that, the numbers are changing and the plan has changed within the last few days. And I think we need to clarify that on Thursday. I'd also like to know, and we did not get a clear answer on whether there is going to be a projected deficit for the end of 2020. A major concern of mine is the fact that the administration did not follow through with the sale of refuse receivables. This was a unique method of financing that I believe could have brought in at least $1.5 million. That's what was budgeted in 2020. Council received a draft of a proposal with a company called MRS that was put together by the previous administration. And I'm not sure if there had to be a request for proposals. I think because of the method of financing, they probably could have negotiated with MRS. I'm not sure about that, but I remember in 2015, the same type of financing was done. And I believe that they just negotiated with this specific company. So I think we need to look into that. Again, that could have, if this was acted upon earlier, because I know Councilman Donahue and I had brought this up several times, I think we might have been able to make headway there. And that could have been, it's definitely $1.5 million that we could have used this year. And we were also told there was a memo that was supposed to be issued on this topic. So I'd like to see that before we pass the budget. The other thing that was in the 2020 budget that was not acted upon, that I think the administration should consider as a means of bringing in additional revenue next year, is an amnesty program. This was something that was talked about in 2020. It was baked into the revenue numbers in the 2020 budget. And I think it's a way other cities do it across the country, a one-time, whether it's a refuse amnesty, real estate, I don't know if that's possible, but a one-time program where if you have outstanding refuse fees or real estate taxes or whatever, you have a one-time opportunity to come in and pay and get on a payment plan. And other cities you've seen a huge influx of revenue into their coffers. So I think we should really, really look at that as a way to raise revenue for next year. As I mentioned in the caucus, my other concern is the conversion from the business privilege and mercantile tax to the payroll preparation tax. It is stated in the narrative that that is being pushed off or won't be considered until 2022. To me, this could be, the potential is a major missed opportunity. This is something that the people of the city voted overwhelmingly for. I think we've studied it, we've analyzed it, and it's really time to act on it because we're going to lose our opportunity if we wait too long. I need to see job descriptions with 12 new positions. I think these are the most positions, most newly created positions that I've seen since I've been on council. With those 12 positions obviously comes a hefty cost. I think total with the raises and the new positions, it's over $500,000. So when you're looking at a potential $4 million deficit next year, you want to be able to rationalize those type of increases. I know there was a discussion in the narrative. I think we need more discussion on Thursday, and we need job descriptions as well. One of the things that stuck out to me was the Parks and Recreation Department as something that needs further study or further discussion. On its face, I just don't understand it, and I don't agree with it. They're adding another director or another manager in this department. You're going to have two managers in the Parks and Recreation Department. And the way that I'm reading it, and I could be wrong, and we need to clarify this Thursday, is that the groundskeepers, the workers in the Parks and Recreation Department, will be transferred under the management of the DPW director or the DPW. Who are these people? Who are the new people in here, or who are the manager and the director going to supervise? On its face, I think you're creating more bureaucracy. So that's something I'd like to discuss on Thursday. Also, one of the things I mentioned in the caucus that I think we need to really talk about is, although it might be minor, renaming the department, moving the employees. Does this marry up with the collective bargaining agreement with the DPW? I know when we voted on the CBA with the DPW 3 years ago or 2 years ago, there was a line in there that specifically stated that the department is Parks and Recreation. Now we're adding a different name, moving employees, so to make sure that that marries up. Some of the other items that stuck out to me is we don't have the 2019 audit, which I've said this before, it's unacceptable. Last year, we waited and waited and waited for the audit. We got every excuse under the book. And again, I know, we had the pandemic at the beginning of the year, but we are all set up with technology. We knew what needed to be done. I sat in on meetings with the auditor and the business administrator's office, and yet we're probably not going to get this thing until December, maybe not until next year. In a city of our size, that is just unacceptable. And I really did think that all of the issues were going to be solved, and apparently they weren't. So again, it's hard to look at a budget when you don't have the 2019 audit. It would be very helpful. The other thing I think we need to talk about on Thursday is the mid-year adjustment or update. And I know Solicitor Hayes has said that this probably, we need more clarification on exactly what that is. Because under the home rule charter, I don't think you can't change the budget in the middle of the year. No. The new positions that are not funded, as I mentioned in the caucus, I don't disagree with them, if the mayor wants to include that in the narrative to say that these may be positions that are funded in future years, that's fine. But putting them as a line item in the budget, even though there's no funding with it, that doesn't make sense to me. We need to take those out. If it's in the budget and it's new, it should be funded. Like we get the point where it's in the narrative. You don't have to put it in the line item. The other thing that stuck out to me was the pilot letters, where we get a contribution from our nonprofits. Those letters apparently just went out within the last 2 weeks. I wonder when we'll get those, or if those conversations have occurred, and when we'll know how much, or if there's going to be an increase in what the nonprofits contribute, because we're going to be passing the budget in December. It would seem to me that those letters should have went out earlier so that we would have a better sense when we're looking at revenue that's coming in. On the topic of overtime, overtime numbers in this budget are similar to last year. We've gone over this year, and I still have not gotten a good explanation as to why we are over in the fire department and the police department, and why we have overtime in the law department. I think we need that explanation on Thursday. And also for this year, we spent overtime in the law department when there was no overtime budgeted. So I would like, actually, Kevin, if you could look into if that is even legal for the administration to do that, when the council and the previous administration clearly did not put any funding in for overtime, and yet somehow some employee got overtime in the law department. Interns are budgeted at $120,000 for next year. I question spending that much money on interns. I think the internship program is a good thing, but not at the expense of $120,000. So I think we need to talk about that on Thursday. I would like, just looking at it preliminarily, I'd like to take that money and use it to fund ECTV. I've had conversations with the mayor and the business administrator about this. They only put in $20,000. That's going to leave them, according to my conversations with them, unable to continue broadcasting. So, I mean, it's not going to work. So we need to fund that. There is a line item for a grant match, and there's money in the line item as an expenditure for a grant match. So I would like a breakdown of that figure, and I'm going to put this all in a document and send it to the administration. Apparently there's no increase for the clerical union in the budget. So I'm assuming that they're going to ask for a pay freeze, but I haven't seen any agreement to that effect. And do we know that for sure? And if not, to me, I don't know how you can put that in there without knowing it for sure. Maybe they do, I don't know, but we need further clarification on that. I mentioned in the caucus too about the Keystone landfill grant, $100,000. I don't believe that that's it's not actual revenue unless something has changed. That was equipment that was to be donated through the landfill agreement. So I don't know why that's in there. We're probably going to have to take that out. And we need to talk about the ethics board funding was cut. I think they're down to $10,000 or $20,000. And there's some other minor items in here. But so those are my initial concerns that I have. So again, I appreciate the mayor and the business administrator coming on Thursday. I think we really need answers to these outstanding questions sooner than later, especially if I had to pin this down to the major items. It really would be the budget shortfall next year. And we need more clarification on all of these different options. I don't think you pass a budget with 4 different options in it. We have to get a way clearer picture on that before I'd be comfortable. So those are my comments. I'm sure I'll have more next week, and look forward to Thursday. Anyone else on the question?
Yeah, Mr. Gaughan, I think we covered a lot of that in caucus, so I didn't give my list of concerns, but I think you did a very good job. I agree 100% on everything that you put out there. One of the things I would like to touch on is, in the pandemic where we're seeing large shortfalls in revenue, things that we can control, and I think in other areas of a business, these are areas that they do control for: trainings, overtimes, new positions, salary increases. These are definitely things that could be controlled and are in the control there. And I mean, when we're using the pandemic as justifications for other things, I think with those revenue shortfalls, it would be good justification for these items here, especially with looking at some of the furloughs that were done in the beginning, and then going into these CBAs as you expressed, the clerical union. You know, that's being negotiated right now. And I mean, if that's the case, I don't understand how justification can be given for salary increases in new positions when that's what's occurring right now, and then going into those CBAs into next year.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the question? Okay. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction and ordinance, amending file of the council number 6, 2020, amending file of the council number 59, 2019, entitled, an ordinance amending file of the council number 17, 1994, entitled, an ordinance as amended, authorizing the governing body of the city of Scranton to enact a waste disposal and collection fee for the purpose of raising revenue to cover the waste disposal and collection costs incurred by the city of Scranton for the disposal of refuse by imposing a waste disposal and collection fee of $300 for calendar year 2021, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter, and to amend the timeline for payments, allowing change in the mechanism of billing, update the requirements for exonerations, and increase penalties for violations.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? On the question, I think it would probably, well, we can discuss this on Thursday with the mayor and the business administrator. As I mentioned, though, I just want to make sure that these bills that would go out, the real estate tax bills that would go out, if they go out to a somebody that does not have a structure on their land, a vacant property, that they're not going to get charged $300. Now, you know, I guess they could come back and say, well, they're exempt, but then you have to go through a whole process. And I'd hate to put people through that annoying process of having to go down, prove that they don't have a structure on their property. I just feel like it would be a huge mess. So maybe that's not the case, but I think we should definitely double check on that before we pass this. And the other thing too, we did see I think everyone got a copy of it. We did get a copy of what a sample bill will look like.
Yes.
Yeah, so just as an example of what it will look like. Anyone else on the question? At this time, I'll entertain all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the city of Scranton on behalf of the Black Scranton Project to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $135,893 for the project to be known as Black Scranton Project Center for Arts and Culture, located at 1902 North Main Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the city of Scranton, PA, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $135,893 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, I'm happy to see this grant application on our agenda tonight. I think the Black Scranton Project has been doing really great work for our city, and I would love to see them have a center and a place where Black and brown people of Scranton can go for programs and resources. So I think that this grant will be really helpful in allowing them to do that and to provide the types of services and programs that they're interested in doing. And I did take a look through the proposal, and I think that there's some really great, meaningful ideas in there.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question?
Also on the question, I used to live down in this neighborhood here, and I mean, the building is something that I've driven past every day. Was this building sold yet, or did they acquire this building at this point in time? Do we know that?
I believe that it was being donated to them. That the building was being donated. That was my understanding.
Okay. And at that, I imagine the property will be taken from the tax rolls, correct?
Yes, it's a nonprofit organization.
Anything else? No? Okay. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Green Ridge Little League to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $121,220 for the project to be known as Field Safety Renovation, located at 2630 Oliphant Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, PA, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $121,220 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Johnson College to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $158,918 for the project to be known as Stormwater Drainage Project, located at 3427 North Main Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, PA, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $158,918 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Lace Building Affiliates LP to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $275,000 for the project to be known as Scranton Lace Adaptive Use Project, located at 1315 Mylert Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $275,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second,
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction and resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of NeighborWorks of NEPA to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $70,000 for the project to be known as West Scranton Business Corridor Improvement Plan, located at 800 block of North Main Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $70,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second,
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5J for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Scranton Life Realty Company Incorporated to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $262,000 for the project to be known as Spruce Street Historic Renovation, located at 536 Spruce Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, PA, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $262,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5J be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second,
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5K for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Trip Park Missy E-League to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $19,950 for the project to be known as Trip Park Missy E-League Field Renovations, located at 2000 Dorothy Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $19,950 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5K be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second,
On the question?
on the question, I'd like to ask that council, if we could have Lori write a letter on behalf of the council, if everyone is in agreement, from support from the council for this grant.
Sure. Do you want to make you want to make a motion to that effect? Kevin, do we have to make a motion for that?
Possibly a friendly amendment, or does it have to be a motion?
Oh,
You're
sorry,
muted.
Kevin, you're muted.
I don't think you need a motion, and I don't think you need an amendment. If we all just agree that you want to write a letter, And then we can have or rescind one.
Okay, that's good. Yep, that sounds good to me. Okay, anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5L for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of University of Scranton to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $315,000 for the project to be known as Mechanical Engineering Program Equipment Project, located at 800 Linden Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, PA, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $315,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5M be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second
Second.
on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5M for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Scranton Area Community Foundation to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Resource Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $63,000 for the project to be known as NEPA Moves, located at 615 Jefferson Avenue, Suite 102, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $63,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
This time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5N be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5N for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to PennDOT Multimodal Transportation Bridge Project Grant Funding to be utilized to replace 3 bridges in the city, namely Mary Street Bridge, Hollow Avenue Bridge, and South Webster Avenue Bridge.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to that item 5N be introduced into its proper committee.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title. File of the Council number 33, 2020, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a tax and revenue anticipation note, series of 2021, in the principal amount not to exceed $12,200,000, providing for the dated date, interest rate, maturity date, redemption provisions, payment and place of payment in respect of the note, accepting the proposal attached hereto as Exhibit B from the financial institution named therein for the purchase of the note, naming a sinking fund depository paying agent, authorizing the proper officers of the city to execute and deliver the note, and certain other documents and certificates in connection therewith, authorizing and directing the preparation, certification, and filing of the necessary documents with the Department of Community and Economic Development of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, setting forth a form of the note.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, earlier in caucus, Solicitor Hayes, I asked if you had a chance to review the fee schedule. Has the city solicitor stated that this is, the fees here are comparable with any other transactions? And do you yourself feel that it's in line with any comparable deals or transactions of this size or nature?
Councilman Schuster, earlier this afternoon, the city clerk circulated the projected or the estimated costs, closing costs, which I think are in the neighborhood of, let's see here, 30.
Yeah, I think we got this in our.
About $45,000. I'm gonna have to review that, and I will have certainly a report back to you prior to final passage to see whether they're fair and reasonable, based on the amount that the amount of the TAN, which is I guess 12.2 million. But I don't know without looking more closely into it.
No, yeah, I got the email maybe about 3:40 today, so I got a quick glance at it, but didn't take a deep dive.
Okay, but I will.
All right, thank you.
It's, I know, I'm almost positive, well, it's definitely lower than last year. At least the bank fee is lower. But the total fees are a little bit lower than last year, according to the business administrator. And I know just from what I remember from past TANs that I think this is probably one of the lowest amounts, because at one time back in, I think 2014, 2015, this was much higher because of some of the financial issues that we were having. But Lori could probably pull for you the last couple years worth of pages of the sources of and uses of funds if you wanted to look at that. But I'm almost positive that this is probably the lowest that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I want to thank Lori. Lori already did that a few days ago, but at that point in time, I didn't have the new fees to compare with the old one.
Oh, okay.
It's just the closing. It just closed short of $45,000 in closing costs. So I have to look to see if whether that's comparable to what's been charged in the past.
And according to the business administrator, as of this morning, this was circulated earlier today, the rates were 0.01% higher than the proposal, than on the proposal date. So it's gone up 0.01%.
Right.
Yeah, I think they said they were going to be tracking that a little. Did he say how it was tracking, or just that it was 0.01 higher?
Yeah, that's all he said, 0.01%, which is normal. That's happened before.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, Resolution Number 89, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to apply for and execute a grant application through the Pennsylvania Department of Economic and Community Development Act 47 grant program in the amount of $50,000 to be used to hire a consultant to assist the city in the redesign of its operating system.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, previously tabled. For consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for Adoption, file of the Council Number 31, 2020, authorizing the City of Scranton to approve the designation of the 300 block of Center Street as a one-way street from Penn Avenue towards Wyoming Avenue, with the Scranton Police Department to enforce the designations as reflected in the attached drawing C-4 Center Street parking.
I'd like to make a motion to amend item 7B as follows. Insert a new whereas clause following the 7th whereas clause to read. Whereas in order to address concerns raised by neighboring businesses and to increase signage, Lackawanna County Engineer Frank Suma prepared a revised drawing dated November 4th, 2020 for Lackawanna County parking in the city of Scranton, Lackawanna County, Center Street parking, noted as C4 project number 2019701.00. A copy of same is attached hereto as Exhibit C with the original drawing on file in the legal department of the city of Scranton. And in the now therefore clause, change Exhibit B to read Exhibit C.
Second.
There's been a motion and there's been a second to amend item 7B. These amendments are necessary due to the schematic revisions that were provided. Anyone else on the question? Sorry. Anyone on the question?
Well, I was just going to say it on the actual vote, but I'm just glad that they reached out to the neighboring businesses, asked for their, their input. And, my understanding is they can live with this now. Prior to this, they had some concerns. So before the changes, they felt they weren't getting a fair shake with regards to issues that would affect their business because of the change, the parking and the one way. So I'm glad, I'm happy to see that everybody right now can live with this. And maybe we have to look at it again, maybe if it doesn't work out, but I'm happy now that this occurred. So I can vote yes for it now.
Okay. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
And just include that little as amended.
As amended.
Sorry, as amended.
That's okay. Is there a second? I'm sorry.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B as amended, legally and lawfully adopted. Before we adjourn, once again, we will have a budget work session this Thursday at 6 p.m. It'll be broadcast on YouTube and ECTV. So anyone who's interested can watch. We'll be having a public hearing December 1st at 5:45 p.m. So the public can submit their comments on the budget. They can also submit them for next Tuesday at our regular council meeting as well. So again, this Thursday, 6 p.m. You can take a look at the budget by looking at our agenda, scrantonpa.gov, under the council webpage, and we'd like to hear your comments if you have any. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.